My name is Patrice. I am from Enniskillen. I work as a podiatrist here in Enniskillen, and before this I studied as a medical student in Scotland for a few years. Whenever I was 25 weeks pregnant, on the 14th of February 2023, my husband and I made the decision to actually go privately to have our baby. The reason we did this was because on the 14th of February I had an appointment in the South West Acute Hospital, where I do think all the staff are absolutely amazing. On that day, it was 8 weeks after surgery suspended, and things, I think staff were leaving, consultants were moving location, I believe. Whenever I walked in the door to that appointment, a staff member did ask, "Are you the doctor?" First of all, when I was 25 weeks pregnant. So by lunchtime we had actually booked a private appointment with an obs and gynae consultant in Hillsborough, and had our baby on the 26th of May 2023. Healthy boy, everything went completely smoothly with the pregnancy. With this planned C-section, I wanted to have him naturally, but that didn't work out. So everything was nice and smooth, but then unfortunately, 5 weeks post C-section, that morning I drank a coffee and it felt hot. Obviously coffee always feels hot anyway, but it felt a little bit warm, a strange sensation. By lunchtime I was eating an omelette and I lost my appetite. I thought I had norovirus, as a family member did have norovirus the week prior to that. It was also our wedding anniversary the night before, and I did have medium rare steak, which I hadn't had the whole way through my pregnancy, so I thought it was just something to do with that. So I said to my husband, who was just home for lunch from being on the road, and I asked him if he could take our 5-week-old baby. So he was exactly 5 weeks old that day, and I would go to bed in case he got what I had. I went into the bedroom, stayed in the bedroom, and at 2:30 that day I projectile vomited in the ensuite. I crawled all 4 corners of the bed in pain after that. I thought my pain threshold had gone, because I find breastfeeding extremely tough. So I didn't think my pain threshold had gone. I'd normally have a high pain threshold, but it was extremely painful. It was around the middle of my tummy, which I didn't actually realise what that issue was, but I now know what it was. About 4:30 that day, or even a wee bit later, the pain actually spread down to my right lower side of my abdomen. That pain spread down, and I did think this could be appendicitis, but I thought maybe it was whatever was in my system was working its way through my bowels, and that I was going to need to go to the toilet soon. I suppose 2 hours later, actually I think that pain was 6 o'clock in the evening, 2 hours later, the pain hadn't gone. I fell asleep, what I thought was an hour, but it actually turned into an hour and a half, 2 hours. Pain hadn't gone. I texted my husband from the sitting room, from the bedroom to the sitting room, and saying that I think I might have appendicitis. So I said I'm going to ring GP out of hours. I rang GP out of hours at 8 o'clock, or I think it was 8 o'clock that evening. I do have exact times from texting my husband, but I rang GP out of hours at 8 o'clock that evening. I said to them that I was 5 weeks post C-section and I thought I had an appendicitis. The lady did say, "Can you do this, can you do that?" Asked me all the relevant questions, and she said, "Yeah, it sounds like that, you have to go into A&E." She asked if I could drive, and I said no, I was 5 weeks post C-section, and she asked if there was a family member that could bring me. I did say I would contact my brother. I didn't, I drove in myself, so I put on a quick 30-minute wash for my husband with the baby, packed a bag, just in case it was appendicitis, but I was still hoping I was a hypochondriac. Arrived into the SWA, and they assessed me brilliantly. They were amazing. They nearly straight away, the doctor said, "By the way you're walking, I'm pretty sure this is appendicitis." He said, "We'll get the consultant down and he can assess you." The consultant assessed me, made sure that everything C-section wise was perfect. He then rang Appendix, and he came back to me, I think it was 2:30 that morning, came back to me saying that they were going to transfer me up to Appendix. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, as everybody is used to now. That didn't happen. Unfortunately, I was lying on that bed all night long extreme pain. I remember I felt drifted off to sleep. One of the nurses actually said to me 4 o'clock that morning, she said, if you have anyone in your family that can transfer you up to Appendix, contact them. I WhatsApped my brother because I didn't want to wake him suddenly. I texted him and said the situation. I was waiting for him to text back, and another nurse arrived in, and I told her, I said, I'm going to ring my brother now and see if he will bring me up to the road. That nurse said, no, there is an ambulance coming for you and they will be here very soon. The ambulance unfortunately didn't come. I drifted off to sleep when I was waking up, temperature extremely high. Whenever I drifted off to sleep, and then it was like 5 to 8 in the morning, and I knew handover was at 8 a.m. and I was in extreme pain, and I said I'll wait until they've handed over, maybe until 8:05 to see if they'd handed over and let them sort themselves out. But I couldn't wait, I had to ring the buzzer because I was in agony. Whenever I rang the buzzer, the doctor came. I told him that my pain score was about 8 or 9. He went away, or it was a nurse I think, and she went away, got the doctor, and then he was going to get morphine. My brother arrived in the meantime, which I didn't see him. I was crying in pain, I was moaning and groaning. He was shocked to see me lying like that and asked when the ambulance was coming. In that moment I cried and I was groaning, and I said, tell them it's 10, the pain. The doctor came back, gave me morphine, gave me another syringe. He said whatever he gave me, if he gave me anything more, that it would cause me to go unconscious. The ambulance then, the paramedics arrived, I think it was half an hour after that, I think it was 9 o'clock, 9:30 that morning. It was so great, it was lovely to see them. They arrived and they were amazing, they were so lovely to me in the ambulance, and one of the paramedics did say to me that your blood pressure is extremely low. I hadn't a clue how ill I was. I said, it's probably because the doctor said that he gave me morphine, and if he gave me any more that I would go unconscious. And I remember the paramedic nodded like that, so that he knew I was quite ill. Anyway, got down the road, which was quite painful, but I was happy enough because I knew I was going to where I needed to go. Arrived to Appendix, and the paramedics did say to me, whenever I arrived to Appendix, they said, now you're going to have to go through the whole process again. And I went, oh my God, and I was okay, and I lay on a trolley in a corridor. I think it was only for an hour and a half. I do have the exact times from texting my husband. So it was on that trolley, then a male nurse came and brought me on a wheelchair over to transfer me onto a chair. Unfortunately, I sat on that chair all day long in complete agony. I did ask for help. I asked for help at 4:30. I was in a minor injuries department in Appendix. I went up to a nurse and I asked her if I could possibly have some water to put into my mouth and to spit it out, because I was obviously fasting for surgery. She gave me a bottle of water, and I did say to her, my pain is excruciating. I said, whenever I'm sitting in the bent over position, it's manageable, but the minute I move slightly, it's excruciating. She answered, she said, what I suggest to you is going back and finding that chair and getting back in that position. I sat back down. An hour later, maybe only half an hour later, I turned around to the desk behind me. I said to the doctor, I'm really struggling. He said, I can't help you. I'm a medical doctor, not a surgical doctor. So I sat there for another while. Thank goodness then a surgeon did appear, and he brought me in. He did say sorry 10, 20 times. He kept saying sorry. I didn't know why, but I said it's not your fault. He examined me, which was a horrible examination. I'll not go into the details of that. They then sent me for a CT scan, which I think was 5:30 that evening. Got the CT scan, and the doctor then reported back to me at about 6 o'clock to 6:30 that the appendix was perforated. She did say that I had to sign forms and things for bowel obstructions and bowel removal and all of that, but I was happy enough to sign those. I just wanted to do my surgery. So I went back to my chair, wheeled back to my chair, sat on the chair that I was already sitting on, and unfortunately sat there all evening long as well. 8:30 came, again I knew it was nurse handover after 8, so I knew the nurse that I had originally asked for help wouldn't be there anymore. Next nurse, I walked near her door, I couldn't cope, my mum and dad were then sitting beside me, but I didn't want them to come up because I knew there was nothing they could do. There was a man to the left of me sitting beside me talking about nightclubs and nights out. There was music and noise outside, and I walked near the door and I stood near the door. I got the attention of a nurse and I told her I didn't think I had long left. She listened to me, thank goodness. She said, take a seat for another few minutes and I'll be with you. She brought me around a corner. In a few minutes time she did come back for me. She brought me around a corner. She did tell me this, but it's not in my notes. She did say that your heart rate is over 200. She then left to obviously bleep the surgeon or whatever. She came back to me, she started tagging me up, taking bloods and things. I told her it was really, really hot. She gave me a gown to change into, and I had to go to the toilet to change into that. Changed into the gown, left my leggings and underwear on. Anaesthetist peered down. She asked me lots of questions. No, she didn't do bloods. She did signed forms, asking lots of questions. Did I switch this up now? She asked lots of questions. I signed forms, and then eventually I was wheeled up into surgery. I was wheeled directly into theatre in my leggings, my underwear, and my gown. At 10 o'clock or 10:30 that night, and I had to remove my underwear and my leggings in front of the entire surgical team in the theatre and hand over my mobile. I knew I was obviously bad at that stage, but I also knew I was in surgery. I remember the faces of everyone in that room. I remember them looking at me really, really worried. But I just wasn't worried because I'd finally got surgery and I knew that's what I needed to get. I recovered from surgery at 3:25. I remember looking at the clock and it was 3:25 in a surgical bed in an elective surgery ward. The next morning the surgeon came down to me and he told me that I had a nasty, nasty, nasty appendix that was gangrenous, and what I remember is that I thought he said he had to use 5 or 8 litres of saline solution to flush my bowels out, but I've since met up with him in May. He did read through his notes and he did say it was 10 litres of saline solution to clean all my bowels. I had a surgical drain in me and I stayed in hospital until that Sunday the 9th of January. My baby, I was still trying to keep up breastfeeding. Unfortunately, whenever I got home, my husband had been looking after our baby and we made the decision not to bring our baby up to Appendix because it was too far away to travel with a newborn baby. We live between Lettergreen and Belcoo. It's almost 2 hours up the road and almost 2 hours back. So got home on Sunday 9th of January. It was very emotional to see our little baby. But unfortunately I had to stop breastfeeding. I wasn't able to hold our baby because unfortunately I had to be cut right down the middle. I had 37 staples in, so I wasn't allowed to hold anything heavier than a kettle. So we had to put a pillow on my lap to put our baby on top of. So that's how we managed for a while. My husband was amazing, his employer was amazing as well. Mum was amazing, all of our family were absolutely brilliant to us. Unfortunately, I'm actually still suffering today. I still have pain down where I believe my appendix should be. It is being investigated, but I did have to ask for that to be investigated. I'm currently waiting on an MRI, but that was unfortunately a bit of a fight to even get that. I did have an appointment with the surgeon in May. Again, I had to ask for that through his secretary. I did have a long discussion with him about all of these issues and he has apologised. I still think that surgeon is absolutely amazing. I do think he saved my life. However, I do think that responsibility needed to be taken for the team in the SWA, because I know he did mention something about that. I'll not repeat anything there, get in trouble. I don't think the data is correct, unfortunately, either. I contacted the RQIA survey. I think it was the last date, it was Friday the 9th of August. I contacted them, left a long voicemail message explaining my full story just in case they just needed that brief story. Someone did ring me back. It was the Friday, the consultation with the lady was with the RQIA doctor was actually on the Monday the 9th of September, so it was a month later. That doctor was amazing. I was on the phone to her for 45 minutes, but I don't believe my information was actually in that report. From reading the report, it made me quite angry because from reading the report, it did say that patients who have given their information until the closing date of the 12th of August, and I know my information was taken on the 9th of September. I also know that from reading that report back in January or February, I got quite annoyed with it because I know that the infographics and the statistics that they use in the report are up until the July 2023. I presented to the SWA on the 30th of June 2023, was transferred to Appendix on the 1st of July 2023, and then had my surgery in between the 1st of July 2023 and the 2nd of July. So the infographics in the report just divide me right in half, unfortunately. I also know that I came up in the system as a self-referral to Appendix. When I wasn't a self-referral, I know I transferred by ambulance. My discharge letter says I presented to the Appendix hospital at 11:30 on Saturday, the 1st of July. So for that reason, I don't believe that there are no negative outcomes for patients. I know I've had lots of negative outcomes. I finally admitted that I have anxiety, and unfortunately realised only 2 weeks ago that through having to go to A&E for another reason, that they did actually diagnose me with post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm managing that. I am getting pain investigated, and I do know it has had an effect on our family and our lives. So I don't believe that there has been a patient that has had no negative effects. I didn't. This is the first time Savory Peak Services have actually heard this story. They've never heard this before. Because I haven't contacted them. I was hoping to go through the government channels and medical channels, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So I've been here.
I